Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone you love and realized they're a complete stranger? That's exactly how I felt when Marcus handed me the divorce papers on our 7th wedding anniversary. No explanation. No fight. Just cold, clinical paperwork and a man I no longer recognized. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how my perfect marriage in Seattle, Washington, crumbled overnight, and the devastating truth I discovered 5 years later that changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and sacrifice. Marcus and I met at the University of Washington in 2015. He was studying business, I was in nursing school. We were those annoying couples everyone either loved or hated, finishing each other's sentences, laughing at inside jokes, planning our future down to the color of our kitchen curtains. We married in 2016 in a small ceremony in Portland, Oregon, surrounded by close friends and family. Money was tight, but we were rich in love. Marcus worked at a tech startup, and I had just started my career as an ER nurse at Seattle General Hospital. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, drove a used Honda Civic, and dreamed of someday buying a house with a backyard for the kids we planned to have. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. October 15, 2018. Our 7th anniversary. I'd planned a special dinner at home. Marcus's favorite lasagna, candles, the works. I even bought an expensive bottle of wine we couldn't really afford. I was going to tell him something important that night, something that would change our lives forever. But Marcus came home late, his face pale and expressionless. "We need to talk," he said, and my heart dropped. Those 4 words. The 4 words no one ever wants to hear. He sat across from me at our small dining table, wouldn't meet my eyes. The lasagna grew cold between us, the candles flickering like dying stars. "I want a divorce, Sarah." Just like that. No preamble. No emotion. "What? Marcus, what are you talking about? Is there someone else?" "No. I can't do this anymore. I've already spoken to a lawyer. These are the papers." He slid a manila envelope across the table. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were divorce documents, and a check for $50,000. "What is this?" I stared at the check, my vision blurring with tears. "Marcus, where did you get this kind of money? We have $1,700 in our savings account. What's happening?" "It's your settlement. The apartment is paid up for 6 months. After that, you'll need to find your own place." His voice was mechanical, like he was reading from a script. "Settlement? Marcus, we built this life together. I don't want your money, I want my husband. Talk to me." But he just stood up, grabbed a suitcase I hadn't noticed by the door, and walked out of our apartment. That was the last time I saw Marcus Mitchell for 5 years. I didn't cash the check for 3 weeks. It sat on our coffee table like an accusation while I called Marcus's phone hundreds of times. Every call went to voicemail. Every text went unanswered. His parents in Spokane claimed they didn't know where he was. His brother Jake stopped returning my calls. Even his best friend Tyler, who'd been a groomsman at our wedding, told me Marcus had made his choice, and I should respect it. Respect it? I was being erased from my own life and nobody would tell me why. Eventually, the landlord needed the apartment. I cashed the check, moved into a studio in Fremont, and tried to piece my shattered life back together. The next 2 years were a blur of double shifts at the hospital, therapy sessions, and slow, painful healing. I threw myself into my work, becoming one of the best trauma nurses at Seattle General. My friend and colleague Jennifer Rodriguez became my lifeline. She dragged me to yoga classes, forced me to eat when I forgot, and reminded me that I was more than Marcus's abandoned wife. "You're Sarah Mitchell," she'd say. "You're a damn good nurse, a loyal friend, and you survived something that would have broken most people. That man didn't deserve you." But late at night, alone in my studio, I'd still wonder. Why? What had I done to make him hate me so much he couldn't even give me a reason? 2020 brought the pandemic and with it chaos at the hospital. I barely had time to think about my failed marriage. I was too busy trying to save lives. It was Jennifer who saw it first. We were on break in the hospital cafeteria in February 2021 when she grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. "Sarah. Oh my God, Sarah, you need to see this." She showed me her phone. It was a news article from the Seattle Times, dated October 14, 2018, one day before Marcus had asked for the divorce. The headline read, "Seattle man wins $20 million in Powerball lottery." My blood ran cold as I read the article. The winner's name wasn't disclosed. Washington allows lottery winners to remain anonymous. But the ticket had been purchased at a gas station 3 blocks from our old apartment. "It could be anyone," I whispered, but my hands were shaking. "Sarah, the date. He asked for a divorce the day after someone in your neighborhood won $20 million. That doesn't mean, doesn't it?" Jennifer's eyes were fierce. "He suddenly had $50,000 to give you. He disappeared completely. His whole family cut you off. Think about it." I didn't want to think about it. Because if I did, I'd have to face a truth so devastating it would destroy me all over again. I couldn't let it go. For 3 years I'd convinced myself that Marcus must have had a good reason. That maybe he was protecting me from something. That somewhere deep down the man I'd loved still existed. But what if the truth was simpler and so much worse? What if Marcus had won the lottery and divorced me to keep all the money for himself? I hired a private investigator named David Chin, a former Seattle PD detective who'd retired and opened his own agency in Tacoma. I used the last of my savings, ironically, money that included Marcus's $50,000 guilt payment. "I need you to find my ex-husband," I told him. "And I need you to find out if he won the lottery." David called me 2 weeks later. I found him. Well, I found where he's living. Mercer Island. One of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Washington, where houses started at $3 million. And my heart was pounding. And he's living in a $7 million waterfront estate. Drives a Tesla Model X and a vintage Porsche. "Sarah, I think your hunch was right." I felt sick. "How do we prove it?" "That's going to be harder. Washington's privacy laws are strict. But I have some ideas. Give me another week." I hung up the phone and cried for the first time in 2 years. David was thorough. Over the next month, he pieced together Marcus's new life like a detective solving a cold case. Marcus had indeed won the Powerball jackpot on October 14, 2018, $20 million, taken as a lump sum of approximately $12 million after taxes. He'd consulted with a lawyer immediately, who'd advised him that Washington was a community property state. If he stayed married to me, I'd be entitled to half of everything. So he'd divorced me first, paying me off with a tiny fraction of his winnings before the money officially hit his account. By the time our divorce was finalized in early 2019, the lottery money was legally his alone. "It's one of the cruelest things I've seen in 20 years of doing this job," David told me when he handed over his final report. "And I've seen a lot." I was beyond devastated. I was furious. For 5 years I'd blamed myself, wondered what I'd done wrong, questioned my worth as a wife, as a woman, as a human being. I'd worked myself to exhaustion, lived in a studio apartment, eaten ramen for dinner, all while Marcus lived in a mansion on the water. He'd stolen my marriage, my future, and my peace of mind, all for money. What are my options? I asked David. Legally, not many. The divorce was final and he technically didn't lie, he just withheld information. Washington law is murky on whether lottery winnings purchased during a marriage count as community property if they're not claimed until after divorce proceedings begin. So he gets away with it? David smiled grimly. I didn't say that. I said your legal options are limited. But there are other ways to get justice. Jennifer thought I was crazy. You're going to confront him? Sarah, he's a snake. He'll just deny everything or throw money at lawyers to make you go away. I don't care. He doesn't get to steal my life and feel nothing. He doesn't get to erase what we had like it meant nothing. So what's your plan? March up to his mansion and demand an explanation? I smiled. Actually, yes. But not the way you think. I'd learned something interesting from David's investigation. Marcus had become a philanthropist, donating money to various charities, serving on boards, building a reputation as a generous community leader. His picture appeared regularly in Seattle business magazines. He'd built himself a new identity as Marcus Mitchell, the self-made millionaire who believed in giving back. And I was going to use that against him. The Seattle Children's Hospital Charity Gala was the event of the season. Tickets were $5,000 each and I couldn't afford one. But I was a nurse at Seattle General, and we had a partnership with Children's Hospital. I volunteered to work the event as medical staff on site, a role that gave me access to the entire venue. The gala was held at the Four Seasons in downtown Seattle. I wore my nursing scrubs with a Red Cross armband, but underneath I'd worn my best dress from my married days, just in case. Marcus would be there. He was receiving an award for his charitable donations. I was finally going to get my answers. I saw him across the ballroom and my breath caught. He looked different, more polished, more confident. Designer suit, expensive haircut, surrounded by Seattle's elite. He also looked happy. That hurt more than anything. I waited until he stepped onto a balcony alone, probably to take a call. I followed, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Hello, Marcus. He turned and the color drained from his face. Sarah? What are you? How did you? Did you really think I'd never find out? For a moment we just stared at each other. Then something in his expression shifted, from shock to something that looked almost like relief. You know. It wasn't a question. I know you won $20 million the day before you asked for a divorce. I know you paid me $50,000 to go away quietly. I know you've been living in a mansion while I worked double shifts to pay rent on a studio apartment. Marcus's shoulders sagged. He looked older, suddenly tired. Sarah, You what? You're sorry? You had no choice? You can explain. Yes. He met my eyes and I saw something there I didn't expect. Genuine anguish. But not for the reasons you think. Can we talk? Really talk? There's something you don't know. Something I couldn't tell you then. I wanted to slap him. I wanted to scream. But more than anything I wanted the truth. You have 10 minutes. We sat on a bench in a quiet corner of the hotel's garden. Marcus's hands were shaking. The lottery ticket, he began. I bought it on a whim. We'd had that fight about money, remember? About how we'd never be able to afford the life we wanted. I remembered. It had been a stupid argument about a dishwasher. When I checked the numbers the next day and realized I'd won, I thought it was a miracle. I thought all our problems were solved. I called my brother Jake immediately because I was freaking out and you were at work. And Jake told you to divorce me so you could keep all the money. No. Marcus looked me dead in the eye. Jake told me that 3 days earlier he'd seen you having lunch with someone at a restaurant in Bellevue. A man. You were holding hands. My blood turned to ice. What? Marcus, I never. Who was I supposedly with? His name was David Thompson. Jake took a picture. Showed it to me. You were at Anthony's home port, holding his hands across the table, crying. Jake said you'd been there for hours. My mind raced back to October 2018. David Thompson. Dr. David Thompson. And suddenly I remembered. Oh my God. Marcus, that was my patient's husband. What? I'd treated his wife, Emma, after a car accident. She died on my table. I couldn't save her. David came to the hospital afterward and I broke down. He took me to lunch a few days later to tell me it wasn't my fault, That Emma had told him she loved me as her nurse, that I'd done everything I could. I was holding his hands because I was crying, Marcus. Because I felt like I'd failed him. Marcus's face went white. No. No, that can't. You divorced me because of a misunderstanding? Marcus stood up, pacing, his hands in his hair. Jake was so sure. He said you were having an affair. That I was about to give you $10 million for cheating on me. My lawyer said Washington law meant you'd get half, but only if we were still married. So you chose money over trusting me. Over even asking me for the truth. I was going to ask you. That's why I came home on our anniversary. But then I walked into our apartment and I saw you'd made this beautiful dinner and I realized, if you were having an affair, you were a better liar than I could ever imagine. And if you weren't, then I was the worst person alive. Either way, I couldn't stay. So you ran. You took the money and you ran and you let me spend 5 years thinking I'd done something wrong. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I know. God, Sarah, I know. And every day since has been hell. If you felt so guilty, why didn't you come back? Why didn't you explain? Marcus laughed bitterly. Because 2 months after the divorce was finalized, Jake told me the truth. What truth? That he'd lied. That he'd never seen you with anyone. That he'd made up the whole story because he was drowning in gambling debt and needed me to win big and share the money with him. I felt like I'd been punched. Your brother destroyed our marriage for money? I confronted him. He admitted everything. Said he'd panicked, that he owed dangerous people in Las Vegas. I paid off his debts, $250,000. And then I told him I never wanted to see him again. But you still didn't come back to me. Marcus's next words stopped my heart. Because by then I'd found out you were pregnant. How did you? I never told anyone except Jennifer. I was going to tell you that night. Our anniversary night. Your medical records. I still had access as your spouse during the divorce proceedings. I saw the prenatal vitamin prescription. The ultrasound appointment scheduled for the week after I left. I felt dizzy. So you knew. You knew I was pregnant and you still left. Sarah, don't you see? If I'd come back, told you the truth, you'd have stayed with me for the baby. You'd have stayed with a man who'd abandoned you over a lie. And you'd have hated me, maybe not right away but eventually. And our child would have grown up in a home filled with resentment and distrust. You don't get to make that choice for me. I was shaking with rage and grief. I know. But I made it anyway. I paid you the settlement. I set up a trust fund in your name, anonymously through lawyers, that pays out monthly. Those scholarship grants you've been receiving the past 4 years? That was me. I thought of the mysterious grants that had appeared in my account. $8,000 a month, every month from something called the Pacific Northwest Education Foundation. Money that had let me finish my master's degree. Money that had saved me. Where is the baby? Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Did you? Miscarriage. 2 weeks after you left. The stress, the grief. I lost everything that mattered in 14 days. Marcus crumpled. Literally fell to his knees on the garden path, sobbing. No. Oh God, no. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I stood over him, tears streaming down my face, feeling nothing and everything all at once. All these years. All this pain. And for what? A misunderstanding. A why? A series of terrible choices made by people who'd thought they were doing the right thing. I need you to tell me something, Marcus, and I need you to be honest. Would you have come back if you'd known about the miscarriage? He looked up at me, his face destroyed. Yes. Every day since I found out about the pregnancy, I've wanted to come back. But I thought you had the baby. I thought you had a child to love, a reason to live. I thought maybe that was enough. So you've been watching me. Following me. Not personally. But yes. I hired people to make sure you were safe, to report back on how you were doing. I knew when you moved apartments. When you got promoted. When you started dating again. I never dated. I know. And that killed me too. Sarah, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know that leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done, and not a day has gone by that I haven't regretted it. But you're still living in a mansion on Mercer Island. A mansion I hate. Every room is empty. Every expensive thing is meaningless. I give away money to try to fill the void, but it doesn't work. Nothing works. I see your face everywhere. I dream about you every night. He stopped, choking on his words. You what? I never stopped loving you. We sat in silence for a long time. The sounds of the gala drifted from the ballroom. Laughter, music, the clink of champagne glasses. A celebration of wealth and privilege, while out here in the garden, two broken people tried to find their way back to something that might have been. I don't know if I can forgive you, I finally said. You made a choice, Marcus. A terrible, selfish choice. And yes, you were lied to, and yes, you thought you were doing the right thing, but you still chose money and fear over trust and love. I know. But I also understand why you did it. And I know you've suffered. And maybe that's enough punishment for one lifetime. Marcus looked up, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time. What are you saying? I'm saying I need time. I'm saying I need therapy, we both do. I'm saying that if there's even a possibility of us finding our way back to each other, it has to be done right. Fully. Honestly. No more secrets. And I'm saying that you owe me exactly $10 million. Marcus actually laughed through his tears. Done. I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork. It should have been yours anyway. Community property. I don't want it as community property. I want it as restitution. As acknowledgement of the harm you caused. And I want half of it to go to a foundation in our baby's name. Our baby. We were going to name her Emma. After my patient. I was going to surprise you. Marcus broke down again. Emma Mitchell. That's beautiful. Yes. Absolutely yes. We'll create the Emma Mitchell Foundation for families in crisis. We'll help people going through what we went through. We'll do something good with this cursed money. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. We talked for 3 more hours that night. Marcus told me everything. How Jake had eventually gotten help for his gambling addiction, how their relationship was still broken, how Marcus's parents had taken my side once they learned the truth and had been waiting for 5 years for him to make things right. They miss you, he said. Mom still has the Christmas ornament you made her. I miss them too. But there was still one piece missing. One thing that didn't make sense. Marcus, if you thought I was having an affair, why didn't Jake's lie work? Why do you still love me after all this time? He smiled sadly. Because 3 months after I left, I went to Anthony's homeport in Bellevue. I don't know why. Maybe I was torturing myself. And I met David Thompson there. He was having lunch with his daughter, Emma's daughter. And he told me about you. About how you'd cried when his wife died. About how you'd gone to Emma's funeral even though you didn't have to. About how you were the best nurse he'd ever met. And that's when I knew Jake had lied. And that's when I realized I'd destroyed the best thing in my life over money I never wanted in the first place. They say time heals all wounds, but I'm not sure that's true. I think time just teaches us how to live with the scars. Marcus and I didn't get back together immediately. We started with coffee meetings once a month, then every other week. We went to couples therapy with Dr. Angela Winters, a brilliant psychologist in Olympia who specialized in rebuilding broken relationships. It took a year before I could hold his hand without flinching. 2 years before I could say, I love you without feeling like I was betraying myself. 3 years before I could imagine a future where we were both in it. Marcus sold the mansion on Mercer Island. We bought a modest house together in Sammamish. Not too big, not too small, with a backyard for the dog we adopted and the children we hope to have someday. The Emma Mitchell Foundation opened in 2024, funded by $5 million from Marcus's lottery winnings and my restitution. We helped families dealing with medical crises, gambling addiction, and relationship trauma. We hired David Thompson as our Director of Family Services. June 15, 2026. 8 years after our divorce, Marcus and I got married again. This time it was a big wedding, 200 guests, a venue at the Seattle Aquarium overlooking the water, all our friends and family. Jennifer was my maid of honor. Marcus's parents cried through the entire ceremony. Even Jake was there, 5 years sober and working as a counselor at a gambling addiction center in Reno. During our vows, I said something I'd written the night before. Marcus, we've lived an entire lifetime in the years we've been apart. We've been broken and rebuilt. We've been lost and found. We've made terrible mistakes and found ways to forgive them. You are not the man I married in 2016, and I'm not the woman you divorced in 2018. We're different people now, scarred, wiser, humbler. And that's okay. Because these versions of us know something the younger versions didn't. Love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. 6 months after our second wedding, I found out I was pregnant again. We were terrified. After losing Emma, the fear was paralyzing. But Dr. Sarah Chin, my OB-GYN at the University of Washington Medical Center, held my hand and said, "You're going to be okay. Your baby's going to be okay. And this time you're not going to face it alone." He was right. On April 3, 2027, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. We named her Emma Grace Mitchell, after the baby we lost and the grace that had brought us back together. Marcus was there for every moment, every doctor's appointment, every contraction, every push. When they placed Emma in my arms, he broke down crying, whispering, "We made it. Sarah, we actually made it." But here's the real twist, the one I never saw coming. 2 weeks after Emma was born, I got a call from David Chin, the private investigator who'd helped me find Marcus 5 years earlier. He said he had something important to tell me, something he'd discovered while going through his old files. When I met him at his office in Tacoma, he handed me a sealed envelope. "What is this?" "It's from Jake, Marcus's brother. He asked me to give this to you if you and Marcus ever got back together. He gave it to me 3 years ago when he got sober." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Sarah, if you're reading this, it means you and Marcus found your way back to each other. I'm glad. You two were always meant to be together. There's something I never told Marcus, something I couldn't tell him because I was too ashamed. The picture I took of you and David Thompson? It was real. I really did see you at that restaurant. But I knew exactly who he was. I'd read about his wife's accident in the news. I lied to Marcus because I was desperate, because I thought destroying his marriage was my only option. But the truth is, even as I was telling him those lies, I knew he'd eventually find out the truth and come back to you. I knew Marcus loved you too much to stay away forever. In a twisted way, I thought I was buying time. I thought he'd divorce you, protect the money, and then when he realized his mistake, he'd come back and you'd reconcile, and the money would be safe from Washington's community property laws. I never expected him to stay away for so long. I never expected you to lose the baby. Those are my sins to carry. But here's what I also never told anyone. The lottery ticket wasn't Marcus's. It was yours. You bought it. The day of your fight about money. You stopped at the gas station on your way home from the hospital and bought it on a whim. You left it on the kitchen counter. Marcus found it the next morning and checked the numbers without even realizing you'd been the one to purchase it. Legally, morally, those $20 million were always yours. Not his. Yours. I'm telling you this now because you deserve to know. And because maybe, just maybe, it'll help you understand that none of this was about you not being enough. You were always more than enough. You were everything. I hope you can forgive me someday. But more than that, I hope you and Marcus build the life you always deserved. With regret and hope. I sat in David Chen's office, staring at that letter as everything I thought I knew about the past 8 years shifted one final time. The lottery ticket had been mine all along. I went home that night, crawled into bed next to Marcus while Emma slept in her bassinet, and told him everything. We cried together. Laughed together. Marveled at the strange, painful, beautiful path that had brought us back to this moment. "So what do you want to do?" Marcus asked. "Legally, we could probably—" "Nothing," I interrupted. "I don't want to do anything. The money is ours now anyway. And besides, this whole nightmare started because we got too focused on money. I'm not making that mistake again." Marcus kissed my forehead. "Have I told you lately that you're the wisest person I know?" "Not in the last hour." "Well, you are. You're also the kindest, most forgiving, most beautiful person I've ever met. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget it." Emma started crying then, hungry for her midnight feeding. Marcus got up to get her and I watched him cradle our daughter in his arms, singing softly, and I thought about all the ways a life can break and heal again. We never told anyone else about Jake's letter. Some truths are meant to be carried quietly between two people who've learned that love isn't about keeping score. It's about showing up, day after day, choosing forgiveness over resentment, hope over fear, and each other over everything else. The lottery had cost us years of happiness. But it had also taught us that we were stronger together than apart, that trust was more valuable than money, and that sometimes the longest way around is the shortest way home.
Sarah and Marcus Mitchell still live in Sammamish, Washington, with their daughter Emma and their second child, a son named David Jake Mitchell, born in 2029. The Emma Mitchell Foundation has helped over 50,000 families and is now one of the largest family crisis charities in the Pacific Northwest. Marcus serves as chairman of the board, Sarah is the medical director, and Jake is the lead addiction counselor. They've never won another lottery, and they're grateful for it every single day. So now I want to hear from you. After hearing Sarah and Marcus's story, here's what I need to know. If you had won $20 million and your brother told you your spouse was cheating on you, would you have divorced them immediately like Marcus did? Or would you have confronted your spouse first to hear their side of the story? And here's an even tougher question. Could you forgive someone who abandoned you over a lie and stayed away for 5 years, even if they thought they were doing the right thing? Or is trust, once broken like that, impossible to rebuild? Drop your answers in the comments below. I read every single one and I want to know where you stand on this. Team Sarah? Team Marcus? Or do you think they both made mistakes? And if you found out the lottery ticket was actually yours all along, like Sarah did, would you have kept quiet like she did? Or would you have demanded legal action? This story proves that money can destroy lives just as easily as it can change them. Sarah and Marcus lost 5 years they can never get back, all because of miscommunication, lies, and fear. If this story moved you, frustrated you, or made you think about your own relationships, do me a favor, smash that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to True Crime Files HQ so you never miss stories like this one. We dive deep into real-life dramas, mysteries, and the complicated truth about human nature every single week. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more incredible true stories. So tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven Marcus? And at what point does love become more important than money? I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, sometimes the person who breaks your heart is also the only person who can put it back together. Like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned to True Crime Files HQ. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're first to know when we drop our next story.